Running up the score.
Jerry Napoleonello.
This team has been on the clock for 4 months now. Why are we taking this down to the 4-minute mark? You know, you have 10 minutes here. 10 minutes here, but you've had 4 months. The dude's got 1,021 text messages that he hasn't read yet. Did we not notice that?
Kevin Donlin.
Bryce Harper's a great player. He's very, very talented, aside from last year. But I blame myself. I'm pretty sure I'm the reason for that with fantasy baseball.
That's disgusting.
Wow.
I can't believe that's real. I mean, again, I'm not. I shouldn't hate. I'm not going to be the kind of person that hates.
No,
And he is doing enough hating for the both of us.
as a Cowboys fan, the expectations are so high, and it's just, you're dug into the ground by the end of the season.
You're basically like what the Patriots are, but you try to do it, but you just don't.
No.
Yeah. At least the Jets, you know what I mean? They have excuses.
This is Running Up the Score, your one-stop spot for all things sports. Now here's your hosts, Jerry Napoleonello and Kevin Donlin.
All right. Running Up the Score back. Jerry Napoleonello, Kevin Donlin. We got a lot to get into today. First, leave us a voicemail. 516-324-8725. Become a patron for us. We're going to be putting out, other content that you'll be able to find on Patreon. So check that out. But like I said, we got a lot to get into today. We continue to talk about this Astros thing over and over again. Just as we thought, there's not much more that we can talk about, something else comes up. So we'll get into that. XFL Week 2. Another success in my eyes. We'll get into that. NBA All-Star Game. Now, we don't usually talk about All-Star Games, whether it be the Pro Bowl, the Major League Baseball All-Star Game, the NBA All-Star Game, the NHL All-Star Game. We don't usually talk about it. It's nil and void now. But the NBA did something unbelievable this year, and we're going to talk about it. But first, we're going to get into the XFL because, once again, Week 2, first of all, they're still around. So that's huge. They did pretty good numbers. Obviously, there was a drop-off, but we kind of expected. We expected a drop-off. It wouldn't be real if it didn't drop off, just because, it took 19 years for it to come back. It was football. The first week, everybody was pumped up about it. So you're going to get those people that just tune in just to check it out. So that inflated the viewership the first week. The second week, you saw there was a drop-off, as I said, but it wasn't that big of a drop-off. So I think, in my eyes, I think this can continue, and I think you're going to continue to now see the viewership kind of stay around the numbers that we got in Week 2. But overall, I think, the play on the field is good. Again, it's not, NFL material yet, but it's good. It's fun to watch, and it's football basically in the spring. I know we're not in the spring yet, but it's just football, other than the NFL, and people, will tune in for that. So overall, we had the first game on Saturday between the New York Guardians and the DC Defenders. We had a 2.146 million person viewership, I guess you could say. And that was on ABC. The 5 o'clock game, I think it would be, on Saturday, the Fox game between Tampa Bay and Seattle, went up to 2.3. Sunday, we had Dallas and LA on ABC. That was at 2.3, closer to 2.4. St. Louis and Houston on FS1, the second game on Sunday, was at a 1.3. The XFL beat out every college game over the weekend, college basketball game over the weekend. The one that beat the XFL out was the game between St. Louis and Houston that was at 1.3, the lowest out of them all. And the basketball game only beat it out by 39,000. So overall, I think that's a success in the XFL's eyes. And like I said, the play on the field was good. I mean, you're seeing Cardale Jones playing very well. P.J. Walker. It's a great story for P.J. Walker, the quarterback for Houston. Basically, Andrew Luck pushed Oliver Luck to get P.J. Walker into this league. So that's because Andrew Luck said, I played with him. He's very good. He just needs a chance. And we're seeing it now. P.J. Walker is one of the stars in this league right now through 2 weeks, and most likely the MVP, especially through the 2 weeks, but we're excited to see how the rest of the season goes when it comes down to it. Landry Jones finally hit the field for Dallas Renegades. The Renegades finally pull out a victory. They're 1-1 now, and since bringing Landry Jones back off of the injury that he had that kept him out of week 1, we saw what Dallas can do on offense. They rushed for almost 200 yards, I believe it was. Cameron Artis-Payne, obviously we know that name. He rushed for, I think, 100 yards on 14 rushes. So Dallas is showing why they were the better odds to win the championship, obviously, from nobody really knowing going into week 1, like what exactly we're going to see. The DC Defenders put a whipping on the New York Guardians the first game of week 2, and we had something interesting. And as we've talked about, the biggest thing in the XFL is the full access, and I think Matt Mcgloin had a little bit too much access, and he ran his mouth, and it was interesting. And what do you have to think? What do you have to say about what Matt Mcgloin did on Saturday?
It's tough when things aren't going well in a locker room, and obviously for Matt Mcgloin, it wasn't the most pleasant first half for him. And sometimes as a player, your emotions get the best of you, especially if you're not playing well at all. And again, I guess he thought that maybe the play calling was questionable, and trying to just point the blame, not from under his nose to somebody else's nose. And it's funny, it adds a little drama to the sport. Me personally, I've never been a fan of adding drama to a sport. It's a game. Obviously Matt Mcgloin wasn't in a great mood at that point in time, and it's probably not the best time to interview him. And this is probably the reason why the NFL does this. And when you're a good player and there's a lot expected from you in an important position like the quarterback position, you just don't want to be asked those kind of questions. You don't want to be asked, what went wrong in the first half. That's a job for a coach. A coach speaks for the team, not a quarterback, and that's why. And there's the perfect example as to why you don't allow these players to have interviews mid-game, because the emotions are high. They're the ones out there. They're the ones grinding. They're the ones going out there trying to find a way to win a game. And I know the coach is out there doing it too, but he's supposed to be the one speaking for all of them. Yeah,
I have the clip. I'm going to play the clip of Matt Mcgloin's interview at halftime. But also during the game, like him on the sidelines, they had him mic'd up, saying that this was the worst game he was a part of ever in his career. So that was funny. I just – the reason why I like this kind of stuff, not the drama factor of it, but just overall, like, listening in to what these players have to say to each other or what they're saying and stuff like that. Like, I've always loved the behind-the-scenes part. I've always said one of my dreams is to be in a draft room,
I understand.
Just to know what's going on.
I understand from the fan standpoint where you're coming at. The problem is that there's another standpoint. It's media and the player. Yeah. And I promise you, you might like the backstage stuff, but I promise you the player doesn't. And at the same time, the media will love it too. on the basis that it'll just give them, stories
More
to
stuff.
feed, and all they're looking for are views at that point. That's what media has turned into. But when you're understanding that, I understand you're trying to see the backstage. You want to see every little detail. What is this guy? How are the players interacting with each other? At the same time, they're human beings, and I understand that's the standpoint you're going to see. You're going to be like, wow, these guys are just, they're hanging out, they're joking around. It's just part of being,
Well, yeah, that's why the NFL has a show specifically called NFL Sound Effects, and because you're hearing what these players are saying.
And that show is heavily edited.
Well, yeah, heavily
aside
edited.
from
Well,
ESPN, where they decided to put Sam Darnold on there, saying things that I bet you the New York Jets or
they didn't want to hear.
And it was a bad situation, and that's what happens when you get when you try to mix in media with a professional sport. I know it's a big part of it, and it has to be covered by someone so that it gets around the world. But there's a way to do it, and there's a way not to do it. The XFL is showing right now exactly how we really don't want to go about it, just on the basis that, as a fan, you love it. But from every other aspect,
well, right now,
it could be a negative thing.
The XFL is looking at it like
it's different.
We need viewership.
Well, yeah, you need.
So
you need something different.
We're gonna get people to come in and watch just because of this, this factor. But
of course, it was the biggest thing. The Matt McGloin thing must have been put on repeat on ESPN that night, because I might have seen it about 7 or 8 times, the same skit.
Yeah.
So, obviously it was the biggest story in sports that day, which is quite incredible, considering, of course, and that's what they want, the publicity, they want the media coverage. I understand them wanting the media coverage. You need it. You need to be able to get out there.
Well, it's funny because Dan Orlovsky, who used to be a Detroit Lions quarterback, now he's on ESPN. He basically said, "I hated that kind of stuff as a player." He's like, because, you're in the moment.
Yep, you're in the zone.
There's a lot of stupid things going through your head, and when you don't have that chance to kind of sit back, take a breath, and just relax, and then, talk regularly. He's like, sometimes that stupid stuff comes out, and you look stupid, so...
It's because you're talking with your emotions. You're not actually, you're not speaking, logically.
Yeah.
I guess is probably the best way to put it. It's because your emotions are involved. It happens to everybody. And that's why the NFL tries to keep it away. And I understand the product of again, there's two sides to this. The XFL, I can understand their standpoint as to why they would want to go about this, but the NFL will never change this, and the XFL is basically showing them exactly why.
Yeah. So this is the clip that we're talking about with Matt McGloin at halftime.
Matt, what does this team need to do on offense to get something going here?
We need to change the whole entire game plan at halftime.
Okay, what do you need to change about the game plan? What are you frustrated about?
There's just a lot going on right now. It's embarrassing for us here as an offense, so a lot of things we want to fix and correct.
So
he literally said there's a lot going on here. I mean, again, when he means that by that is, there's a football game going on, but there's a lot of emotions going on the football field. People want to win.
At one point, they even had it mic'd up, the conversation between Kevin Gilbride and Matt McGloin, basically talking about, and he was just basically throwing all the players under the bus. So what this just looks really bad on Matt McGloin, especially to his teammates. So it's going to be interesting to see how the rest of the season goes for the Guardians. Do I think that he's going to, come back next week and light it up? Light it up might be a little strong when it comes to Matt McGloin, but I think he's going to play well. I think this is really something that's not going to bring him back down. And I think he's going to show his teammates that, it was just the heat of the moment. They were getting their, rear ends kicked. And it just, stupid stuff came out, basically.
Well, it's just logical.
Yeah.
If you're losing a game and someone comes up to you and goes, things aren't going so well, I think it would probably take every bone in my body to try to prevent myself from saying, yeah, you think? Like, without being sarcastic or something along the lines of that, just because your emotions are involved. Like you're not winning. Things aren't going the way you're expecting them to. And you basically just, you let your emotions take over, and eventually you're going to say a wrong thing or two. And this Matt McGloin thing might be like a little nick compared to what somebody else might say.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, it's funny, for things not going their way, it's definitely the Vegas sports books when they're putting out for the XFL, that's for sure. Because they've really swung and missed on a lot of things, especially the over-unders. The regular spreads haven't been that bad, but the over-unders have been pretty bad.
Well, it keeps going under.
Yeah. I mean, the first week it started out, almost every game was close to like 52.6 or something like that. And these games have just been so under. Every under hit in the first week. The second week, this past week, I mean, they weren't as high, but they were still high. They were in the 40s, maybe 48 or so. So I'm expecting those to come back down a little bit more. But we had some good games though this week. So I'm getting more and more excited as the weeks go on with the XFL because I think it's really starting to become something special. And do I think it's going to be ready to fight the big bad NFL? No, and I think it's going to be a very, very long time before they even can think of doing something like that. But right now, I think they can go small and maybe fight the other big bad college football. That's going to be interesting. Maybe even the CFL. The CFL may it's going to be interesting to see. But Oliver Luck, the president of the XFL, Andrew Luck's father, he was on the Dan Patrick show, and he's been around just talking about the league, obviously, making his rounds. And something that stuck out to me, and I didn't even really think of something like that. I just knew that there was something with the NFL, and we cleared it up because I mentioned it back like 2 weeks ago or something like that, where the XFL and the NFL, there's no relationship. And Oliver Luck says in the interview with Dan Patrick that, they don't have a relationship. They don't have a mutual relationship. They have a respect. The XFL respects the NFL and the parameters of what the NFL is kind of, the structure for, professional football. But what he said was interesting when it comes to college football, because with the NFL, you have to play 3 years in college to even get into the draft. So with the XFL, Oliver Luck, basically says there's not what they have in the NFL, and I have the clip, and I'm going to play the clip, but just, I just thought there was interesting. So, do you want to play the clip and then we'll talk about it, or do you want to talk about it and then we'll play the clip?
No, you can play the clip.
All right. So here's Oliver Luck on the Dan Patrick show, just talking about what they can expect from the XFL in future years.
We're not subject to the NFL's requirement of 3 years out of high school. That's baked in the CBA. We're not a party to that. We do have the ability to, go and sign a college freshman or a sophomore. There's only one player right now in our league, a guy named Kenny Robinson, who ironically went to my alma mater, West Virginia. He's got college or had college eligibility remaining. He only played 2 years of college ball and then decided that he wanted to play in our league. And he's basically, Dan, using this season, he's playing for Jonathan Hayes in St. Louis. He's using this season as a personal combine, right? Instead of going to the combine and doing the drills, he's said, I need to play. I need to get more tape. I need to play 10 games or 11 games against good competition. And he's doing very well. A lot of scouts anticipate him being a first, second round draft choice. So we haven't really dipped our toe into that particular pond, but we certainly could in the future.
So, like I said, the XFL, is going to look into something like that, and that just kind of brings up an interesting,
I'll tell you my take
topic,
on it.
basically.
I'll tell you my take on it right now. It's quite simple. It's you're trying to take players that are stars in college football as freshmen. A lot of them are. A lot of them are great players right off the bat. If you're a great player, you got the size, even at a young age, which we've seen it plenty of times, you're a good player, and it's known. This guy is a future lottery pick in the NFL. But when it comes down to it, and what the NFL looks for in their players, there's a lot that goes into it. There's a lot to becoming an NFL player. You can be the most talented man in the world, but you need to have the right head on your shoulders. I think that, all NFL fans can honestly sit back and tell you that the one name that comes to mind with this is Antonio Brown. Antonio Brown is an incredible talent, but he doesn't have the right mindset to be in the NFL right now. And the problem is that the NFL looks into this in their draft process. And I wouldn't say the NFL as an organization, but as each individual team. And the representatives that they bring from each team, they're looking for something. Yeah, they're looking for the talent. It's on the field. It's on the tape. We know about it already. I want to know how you are as a person. Because there are so many different people out there, and everyone has different kinds of mindsets, and it's understandable. That team is going to look for the gentleman with the mindset that they're looking for. And each team could have different mindsets they're looking for. There's no arguing that. I'm not going to be the one that based, what kind of person is going to get into the NFL as opposed to someone that will not. But what happens is, part of being in college football and being a member of these teams, you legitimately go through the process of playing college football, but at the same time, you have a lot of schoolwork. You have a lot of responsibilities. And how you're able to manage those responsibilities is 100% a concept that the NFL and its teams look for in a player. They'll speak to coaches. They want to know, what is this kid like off the field? How is he? Is he a good guy? Is he a troublemaker? There are a lot of people like that. So what happens is, even though the XFL wants to take some of these great players out of college football, or maybe take them right out of high school, the problem with that, coming from just an educated decision from a talented football player, if you're a talented football player right now, and you have an option between college football or the XFL, what are they offering their players right now?
The average is right around 55,000,
and
with
we're
the star players making upwards of 500.
Okay, when $500 is a lot of money.
Yeah,
and
so that's most likely quarterback position.
So not even just that, though. I understand an important player, but if you're a big-time offensive lineman and you don't want to play your years of college, and maybe the schoolwork is just too much for you, and you want to focus on football, because there are a lot of people that can't do that.
Yeah.
You got to put your focus on your game plan for the game you have this week, because your game this week means everything to you, because this is the future you're looking for. And now you got to manage, your schoolwork on top of it. A lot of players just can't do it. And honestly, there's been reports even going way back that, some of these schools kind of even eased off on some of their great players so that they were eligible to play.
Yeah.
So it becomes like a big part. You're not doing anyone any kind of a favor with that, but, if a player decides to leave and go to the XFL, that mindset will always go into the NFL organizations, all these different teams. Why couldn't he finish college? Why did he have to go to the XFL? Does he lack responsibility? Does he, because we need someone to be responsible. You're representing this organization. You can't be doing, irresponsible things.
My thing when it comes to this and bringing players, and I agree with you, but I feel like also
there'll be a lot in the process. Yeah, I know there'll be a lot into the process.
You're putting film out there of you playing against other players that have either played in the played in the NFL,
or they're the cream of the crop. Right now.
So I just feel like it's really only going to help the player, in my opinion. I think it sucks now because a lot of these players, especially players that have already retired, the biggest thing is like they're like, thankful that they got a degree, and there's a lot of players out there that are bankrupt. There's a lot of players out there that are doing just as well as they were, while they were playing, so I just, it's interesting, I would say. It'll be fun to see how it plays out. But I think there's some XFL players right now through 2 weeks that will have offers for the NFL. No doubt in my mind.
Well, it's after a full year of playing,
Yeah.
and absolutely, and this
But
is
I
what
mean,
the
some
goal of a
players
lot
have
of
already gotten offers.
Well,
And
we'll see what happens
because-
as the season progresses, because at the same time, like, there will be a select few that are going to be considered star players, and we'll see how what the turnover is on that at the end of the season, and therefore there'll be a lot more positions for other players to have other opportunities, because there are a lot of players out there that might have had no choice. Again. Sometimes, you want to go to college, you want to go to these big-time colleges, but you don't have a full scholarship. So this is costing you a lot of money to go play. Listen, we all have families, we all have responsibilities, and we got to take care of, the important people in our life. And, so there's a lot of different scenarios that go into the play. So it's not like depicting someone that goes to the XFL will have this negative impact on them. There might be a situation, but it gives players an opportunity. And I think it's good for the XFL.
I think that's the biggest word.
I think
there.
coming from a player that has an opportunity to either go to college or go play football, it really just depends on the mindset and what they're expecting. Football's no guarantee, and we're talking about in every aspect. Just on the injury aspect, like you could be the greatest of all time. If you have bad knees, there's nothing you can do about it, and you need to always have a fallback plan, because a lot of, you can't just base your life on the expectation that you're going to play football professionally.
Yeah, I think the biggest word that you said was opportunity. I think that's what the XFL is going to be giving everybody.
Well, you get the same in college too, though.
Yeah, but you have to play the 3 years.
Of course.
To
and therefore
and
risking injury and everything else.
And you're
that
not
goes
getting
along with
paid.
it.
At least with the XFL, it may not be a lot of money, but you're getting paid. As the college football scene, you're not getting paid. So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out the next couple of years, and if we start to see that more, like if you start to see players, like a perfect example. Now I know he ended up making the NFL, but like you have at Oklahoma, you had Adrian Peterson. His backup was Felix Jones. His backup ended up playing for the Dallas Cowboys. But that's like at some point where it would be like, you know what? Why not play professionally in the XFL? Have, a lot more of my film seen, or even have more film out there for the NFL to look at, and maybe I'll get a better, draft pick, or, just something like that. So, it's going to be interesting the next couple of years.
I just want to see how the
XFL
turnaround goes.
Yeah, exactly.
We really need to take a look and see, how these star players of the XFL will come into the NFL, because if they're not making that much of an impact, then we go along from there.
So last week we were talking about, the Astros, but we were also talking about playoff, changing in Major League Baseball. It's not definite yet, but they're talking about possibly changing the MLB playoff format. But we just had breaking news within the last 10 or so minutes that the NFL will be changing the structure of their playoff system. And under the current CBA proposal, 7 teams from each conference will make the playoffs with only one bye per conference. And if this does get approved, this will be in effect this upcoming season.
Oh, wow.
So that's going to be interesting to see. We'll have time to talk about that. But we got to talk about this baseball thing with the Astros.
No, it's not even a baseball thing. It's the Astros.
The Astros thing. And, soon to be the Red Sox thing as well. We'll see what happens with that. But there was a lot of things that went down this past week since we were on the air last week, because we had pitchers and catchers, go into spring training. We also had the players end up in spring training, report to spring training this upcoming week, this last week or so. So all these players got in front of a microphone and just expressed their displeasure with the Astros and the Astros players, and mostly Rob Manfred, actually.
Well, this all goes beyond, Manfred as well. It took, a solid, 2 weeks, 3 weeks for any player to come out. And there were a select few that came out, like Clevenger and Bauer has been clear cut about it the whole way. But even guys like Judge, some of the bigger names in baseball right now. I mean, you can't be bigger than Clevenger, but again, at the same time, Judge is one of the biggest names in baseball, and it even took him some time to come out. And it's because it's a known fact that these professional sports teams were telling their players to keep quiet on the subject, or MLB. Somebody had to come out with something or else there would have been a humongous because there is an uproar right now, which means that baseball has given the approval for these players to speak their mind regarding it.
Well, I feel like when it comes to that, you're like the players that we're going to end up hearing from here, because I have clips for each of them. But Mike Trout, Cody Bellinger, Aaron Judge are three of the players that are becoming the face of baseball right now. So I think, for them, all these other guys that came out either said something on Twitter or were on some kind of podcast and ended up, voicing their displeasure. These guys, I think they're trying to be that Derek Jeter type by, just kind of keeping quiet until there's a time where you just can't keep quiet.
Well, majority of these players have kept quiet.
Yeah, absolutely. So
it's not even just the stars. So there's no doubt in my mind that something was. I mean, this could be a total guess. I have no proof behind this whatsoever, but it's obvious that there was a delay before the initial reaction from just the baseball public, and we're not talking about the fans. We're talking about the players, the coaches, because I haven't heard from a single coach regarding this yet.
Well, Aaron Boone said something about it, and
this took time.
Well,
this took time for this to happen.
It was just, all these. We started to hear from all these players and coaches, all when pitchers and catchers reported.
Like, why did it take the Houston Astros this long to apologize for it as well? These apologies came out less than 2 or 3 days ago. Including Rob Manfred.
Rob Manfred, I think, is just every time he gets in front of a microphone, something stupid comes out. And I really thought Rob Manfred was actually a good commissioner.
There's no way that's true. Play the clip.
What, Rob Manfred?
Play the clip.
I don't have Rob Manfred because I just couldn't find a perfect clip because everything that he said was stupid. But
honestly, you know what? I think we did everyone a favor with this. If you would have listened to this explanation that he had regarding the situation with the Astros,
he basically gave immunity to the players, and
I'm sorry.
You're thinking about Jim Crane.
Yeah.
I have
that's
Jim
a
Crane.
whole other story. No, but Manfred's handling of this has been unsatisfactory. Is probably the best way to grade it. It's been he doesn't know how to punish this team for this.
Yeah, he doesn't.
Because there are a lot of players out there that are going to, and I think he thinks because of the quiet, overall Major League Baseball that, all the players and coaches and no one really coming out with their true emotions. But there's a lot being said amongst the clubhouses regarding this situation. Yeah. There's a lot that went into play. A lot of money went into play with it as well. But even on top of that, he doesn't even know how to handle something like this. I don't think he understands how important this is. That there's 31 other teams out there that are going out there to do everything they can to win a World Series. Okay, and you just worded it as if it was a hunk of metal.
Yeah, and he had to come out and apologize for that.
Of
I
course.
think it was either today or yesterday, but
of course.
But just the fact, like, I'm gonna ask you a question here, and I'm gonna answer it as well. But I want to hear what you like. How would you punish the Astros throughout this whole thing?
I think what it comes down to is it has to be a ban, not permanent by any means. Maybe like a 1, 2, 3. A lot of these players are in their prime, but you did this to yourself. You knew what you were doing. This was not. I told you this story was not going away. Yeah. I think maybe Major League Baseball might have thought people were keeping quiet about it. It's not going anywhere. Anything happens even beyond. We haven't even played a regular season baseball game yet. All happened was pitchers and catchers showing up, and having to do interviews with the media, and that's why you're probably seeing more and more of it. Yeah. The fact that they've all kept quiet is very alarming as well. And baseball is in for a rude awakening with this whole situation in so many ways.
Yeah,
the product you put on the field was false. It's probably the best way to put it.
Well, now I've kind of just gone over this a couple of times and how I would punish the Astros if I was Rob Manfred.
There has to be a ban.
And
to the players,
the
players,
problem, like,
the coaches and stuff have been fired already. That's it.
That's the thing. Like, you're
going to punish
exactly. You're punishing the owner, and you're punishing, or like you're punishing the GM.
Imagine we started doing interviews mid-game of baseball.
Yeah. But that's what I'm saying. Like, you punish the head coach and you punish the GM. All the Astros had to do was just say, "All right, you're fired." Like, and then that's it. So you like basically the.
And if MLB wants to sit there and put a nail on this that it never happens again, you need to ban their players.
But
certain players.
That's the other problem. So basically, when it comes out to it,
people are going to have to testify. This is going to be a disaster.
The Astros are coming out $5 million, broke. And
all right, so one game of the 162 games of soda prices. I mean,
two, I think it's first and second, round draft picks for the next 2 years, I think, or so. So that's basically it. So to me, there's got to be some way of.
How do you not?
I don't know how you punish the players, because you don't know how many players, were in on this. And it seems like the whole team was. So even then, now say the Astros for the next 2 years are not allowed to make the playoffs. That's your punishment.
I think it's just a genuine thing. If you were on that team and you weren't guilty of doing anything, then it's a known fact that you're not guilty. And if you want to sit there and come out and say, I had nothing to do with this, publicly, and testify under oath around it based on that, then there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
The system isn't completely destroyed. But these players that are absolutely guilty, that they know that there's proof around the league from guys that came out and spoke publicly about it, proving, hey, man, you were a part of this and you know it. And I think that's where you make the judgment on which players were involved, and there has to be a hefty punishment regarding it.
I think, I actually just thought about
You think it's grateful to be in the Major League Baseball, but you were taking money and taking an opportunity out of someone else that works really hard to try to get up to that level.
So this is where I'm at now, because I just thought about this just now. So now you ban the Astros from making the playoffs for the next 2 years.
How do you do something like that?
That's what you do, okay? So now you're thinking, all right, well, the player that has one year left on his contract just leaves the next year and gets to play for World Series. I say you suspend.
That's more
the
along
players
the lines of what this
that
is
have
a suspension, but it's honestly for a year or two from Major League Baseball being exempt from the league.
So say now you have, the Astros are banned from the playoffs for the next 2 years. So now you say, just example, just out there, Altuve has one year left. So now after that 1 year, he's just going to be like, all right, I'm out of here. So he leaves. So then if he does leave the Astros, I think you suspend him for a decent amount of games for that next year. And that's just because there's got to be some way of just suspending the players, because this was a player, generated.
Those are the chairs.
No, I know. That's the second time.
It's funny. I'm surprised you continue to go straight forward with your point. I'm so sorry. I just literally cut off his point in the middle. Continue.
But I feel like you have to, because it's a player generated cheating scandal. Like, we all know, AJ Hinch said that he didn't have anything to do with it. He didn't want it to happen.
Well, there's no proof of anyone coming out and publicly saying that you had anything to do with it, because there won't be if you literally had nothing to do with it. The fact that I'm watching Altuve hold his jersey shut is a proof that Jose Altuve knew what he was doing, and he still went ahead and did this. And I mean, when I'm talking about suspending the players, I mean, he's literally the primetime person I'm speaking of right there.
It's just funny because
there should be a banishment of some sort.
At that time, when he did that, he hit that ball off of Chapman to send his team to the World Series, okay? You just hit a game-winning home run
that you knew where
against one of the top closers, one of the hardest throwing pitchers in the league, against one of the most prestigious organizations when it comes to baseball and all of sports, really. And the first thing that you're thinking about is not having your jersey ripped off. But then after that, okay, so now he goes down into the dugout, changes his shirt, comes back out for the interview, and then in the interview says, my wife doesn't want me to have my jersey ripped off anymore. Stupid excuse. Okay, then just recently, someone else, I think it was Carlos Correa, who's also talking out of his rear end. He said that Altuve had a new tattoo, and it looked bad. It was on his collarbone.
It's funny that players talk about this to know enough to hide it, but can you please just play the clip of this coach of the I'm sorry, he's the owner, right?
The owner of the Astros first.
Owns them.
We'll play here. So we'll play that here, and then after that I'll play Bellinger, Trout, and Judge, and we'll just, react on everything. But here's Jim Crane, and it probably would have been better if he just kept his mouth shut.
Yeah, probably.
Our opinion is, that this didn't impact the game. We had a good team. We won the World Series, and we'll leave it at that.
Did you say you feel like this didn't impact the game? And what do you mean by that?
I didn't say it didn't impact the game. Basically, as the commissioner said in his report, he's not going to go backwards. It's hard to determine how it impacted the game, if it impacted the game, and that's where we're going to leave it.
So
it didn't impact the game.
Now, mind you, that those two questions, he was talking about. One of the questions was the Yankees said they heard whistling, and then they said that game where Chapman ended up giving up the home run. Basically, they were asking Jim Crane what he thought about that. He said that he didn't think that it affected the game. But then, mind you, these two questions were 50 seconds apart. 50 seconds. 5-0. You go from saying, I don't think it impacted the game, to saying, I didn't say it didn't impact the game. Okay. So, what's going on in that head of yours? So, it started from there. Then, Manfred had his press conferences. Just everything was just, out of this world. Just so stupid. But here's Cody Bellinger. And he was actually pretty funny.
I thought the apologies were whatever. I thought Jim Crane's was weak. I thought Manfred's punishment was weak, giving him immunity. These guys were cheating for 3 years. I think what people don't realize is Altuve stole an MVP from Judge in 2017. Everyone knows they stole the ring from us. I know personally I lost respect for those guys. I think I would say everyone in the show, in the big leagues, lost respect for those guys. I don't know what human hits a walk-off home run against Aroldis Chapman to send your team to the World Series. And one has the thought to say, don't rip my jersey off, but two, go in the tunnel, change your shirt, and then come out and do your interview. Like that makes no sense to me. It makes zero sense to me. Because I know me, Gary Sanchez said yesterday, you can rip my shirt off, my pants off. I sent my team the World Series off for Aroldis Chapman in the ninth inning at home. You can do, I'm going crazy.
So he's referring to Gary Sanchez because Gary Sanchez, the first day that the pitchers and catchers reported, he basically said, if I hit a home run to send my team to the World Series, you could rip my pants off. It don't matter. I just sent my team to the World Series. I don't care what you rip off. And,
it just shows the guilty
true.
Situation that Altuve was feeling. He felt guilty for exactly what he was doing. He knew what he was doing was wrong, and a lot of these players that were involved knew what they were doing was wrong. And, honestly, maybe this will work for Major League Baseball because now Houston, now they have basically like a bad guy. You know, the bad guys are the Houston Astros.
It's usually
no
the
team.
Yankees.
I understand, but no team is going to have more hate for them than the Houston Astros, and this might not go away in one day.
Yeah.
You know, and Houston, this group of players they have, they better hope they're still special because it's going to be hard to even sell these guys at this point.
And that's actually another thing, because this is what really pissed me off about what Manfred said, is that they have now a thing this year that if any player throws at any of the players in the Astros organization for any type of retaliation, that it's going to be a hefty punishment. So now basically, first of all, you're taking away the high and tight pitch for any pitchers against the Astros. So once again, you're giving the Astros an advantage, something that they've had for the last 3 years. But that's not here nor there, I guess. But I think players should still throw at them. That's just how baseball is run. The players police themselves as just as the NHL is, and it's great for the sport. It is. But it was funny because today Giancarlo Stanton came out and said, if I knew what was coming in 2017, if I knew the pitch that was coming, I would have hit 80 home runs.
Absolutely.
And it's true. So here's his soon-to-be captain of the New York Yankees and teammate Aaron Judge.
Wasn't a fan of the punishment. I thought that was a little weak for, a player-driven scheme, that no players, involved got any punishments. And then with Bellinger, man, I agree with a lot of the things he said, and he went out there and spoke his mind, and, I really, don't want to get into the, the whole, if Altuve stole a, MVP or not, because that really don't matter. It's over with, man. And, the biggest thing is, I got to make sure next time I don't keep the vote so close, I guess. Try to go out there and win it outright. So there's no, no question. So he won it, and that's how it is. And that stuff, the whole thing, even thinking about who it affected. It didn't only affect us as the Yankees. It affected, like I said earlier, the fans of the game. And even other guys, the guys that lost their jobs because of it, guys that, went into Houston and got beat up a little bit and never made it back to the big leagues. That's another thing for me that's, kind of really can't tolerate that, for the guys that are going there playing it fair and square and, get beat up a little bit and now they're out of a job because of it. That ain't right.
So, he's 100% right. These are guys, first of all, that, as I said earlier, these are guys that are the face of baseball. And they're ripping the commissioner, and then you even have
the only thing I see.
James
The only thing I
out.
see from this, I know, and the only thing I see from this is what took so long. I'm a Yankee fan, and I'm all about these players and everything else. What took so long? Why was there a hold on talking about this? There should have been no doubt about it that this was.
I honestly think it's because
this was definitely an inside thing, man.
I don't know about that. I think it was mainly because they were not reporting to their team yet. So these guys were all over the place. So they had nothing to do with baseball yet. And
you can't tell me an email or anything else wasn't sent out regarding, I'm sorry, but like they said, Aaron Judge is a big time name. Everyone knows that Altuve and him were runner-up for the MVP that year. You can't tell me that 2 weeks ago the New York Yankees didn't contact Aaron Judge, going, if anyone asks you questions regarding that.
Well, he did. It was kind of a silent statement, but he did make a statement because that year after he found out that Altuve won the MVP and beat him out by a little bit, he tweeted out and.
Well, he just simply took it out.
And just said, congratulations, but he deleted it. And he said that in his press conference as well.
Of course, I know, and that's all he did was delete it.
Because he said it made me sick to my stomach that I was, that it.
Of course, and he wanted to react somehow.
Yeah.
You have to remember, that was a 2 year ago tweet.
Yeah.
Like, someone is designed to keep track of that.
Yeah.
Between you and me, folks, that's a little crazy. We're talking someone tweeting 2 years ago, and there's someone that has a job out there
to pay attention to people taking things off. It's just, I mean, I understand the drama aspect of it, like I said, but again, at the same time, there's no doubt in my mind, because there's a full league of players that all have an opportunity, especially guys like we talked about, mixing up from trying to get up to the majors or whatever. A lot of these guys have kept quiet regarding the whole ordeal, which is crazy, because if you truthfully feel like this was a injustice kind of a thing to do, especially when you hear the, Major League Baseball speak out on it and not punish any of these guys. All right, so what is the big deal for every team to do it?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, what are you doing to the game of baseball at that point? Again, it made it a more exciting thing. And the Astros were one of the best offenses in whoa, third time's the charm, baseball. But at the same time, it was what's the best way to word this? It was tainted, I guess, is the best way to put it.
So here's Mike Trout on what he thinks.
I don't agree with the punishments. The player's not getting anything. There was a player-driven thing. It sucks because, like you said, a guy's career's been affected. A lot of people, lost jobs. It was tough. It would be me going up to the plate knowing what's coming would be pretty fun up there. So, it's just, like I said, a lot of guys lost respect for some of the guys, and, it seems like every day something new comes out. So,
how do you feel about those guys?
I got close relationships with all them guys, and, it's tough seeing stuff when it comes out. A lot of guys reached out to me, and it's tough. Like I said, it's not good for baseball, and it's sad to see.
Guys from the Astros reached out to you?
Yeah, a couple guys. I'm not going to name any names.
No,
but,
what was it basically the message? Were they apologizing? Were they trying to explain themselves?
Just trying to explain what happened. You read a lot of stuff in the paper, and, once you read something, a lot of people jump to that conclusion. But sometimes it's right, sometimes it's false. It's like I said, it was a tough off season to see that as a baseball player, and you just hope Major League Baseball cleans it up and play good baseball from here on out.
What's your view of that World Series championship?
It's tough because you don't know what helped them and what not, but if you know what's coming, it's going to definitely help you. I think that's it's tough. You're taking the trophy away, taking the rings away. I think they should definitely do something. I don't know what, but to cheat like that and not get anything, it's sad to see.
So that's exactly what we were saying.
And, honestly, just listening to that interview is my perfect example, and I would like to close on this because I think this is honestly like what really is the the big picture here. And the fact is that clearly you see the media just trying to fetch anything they can out of the face of baseball, just for a story. That's all I see when I see this interview. I know what the Astros did was wrong. We've talked to so many players about it already. But you just trying to go out there and get a side of Mike Trout that doesn't exist because he doesn't want to be bothered. What happened. This this is over, But at the same time, what you want me to say? I'm mad at these guys? I'm angry about these guys, like, oh, they can go to hell. And there are some guys coming out and saying that.
But I mean, he basically the extent that he went to was just he lost respect for him. That's what he said.
Yeah, but he's the face of baseball, and obviously it's a very common thing to lose the respect. But they were trying to feed that out of him. Yeah, and they were able to get that little bit out of him. But I mean, asking a question like, "What do you think of the World Series in 2017?" It's like, I don't know, man. The Angels weren't anywhere near it, so like, I don't. You know what I mean? Like, what kind of statement is that to say to?
I mean, that's more of a judge question.
Of course, and more of absolutely.
But
you're trying to
Cody
get
Bellinger
and without
question.
a doubt, Mike Trout is the best player in baseball. Yeah. Without a doubt, Aaron Judge is a very good player.
Mike
Trout is at another level.
Yeah,
and what he brings to baseball, he's like a bright spot in the game of baseball. Yeah, But at the same time, like I said, the story is going nowhere. Okay, we got reports of even fans, season ticket holders suing, the Astros over this ordeal. Because, again, like we said, folks, it's very common that when you are doing really well, that you're going to wound up, charging more money to view your team.
And that's what they did.
And that's exactly what they did. And then you got your owner saying that these didn't impact the game, but I think this gentleman who is actually suing, I'm not going to give a name out, but he is suing the Houston Astros, and he's a season ticket holder for them. You're a fan of the Astros, and you're suing them because what you put on the field was tainted, wasn't real, and what did I pay for?
Yeah. And
I'm not going to argue that. I mean, good luck to the Houston Astros and their representatives on arguing that. Yeah. But this gentleman certainly has a point. And like I said, this story is not going anywhere. And it's a big problem for baseball. And again, I think the only way you're going to be able to get rid of this going forward as well is you need to make a statement regarding the players that are absolutely, no doubt, and knowingly guilty parties. Don't want to rip my shirt off because my wife won't allow it or didn't approve of it.
Or had a bad tattoo.
Mr. Altuve, you know you're guilty here.
It's just crazy because everybody
you're not
at
alone.
This guy is like one of the best in the league, and it's like now it's just,
Well, he's got something to prove, and I think he's going to be the best. I know,
but like this is where we were talking about with steroids and everything like that. Is like, all right, well, is he that good? Like, is he that good?
What's a whole deal ever
now?
Again?
Now, if he does have a good season this year, it's going to be like.
But what about
cheating again?
But what about the rest of his team?
Yeah,
and again, there'll be a lot more that goes into
Bregman,
play.
Same thing,
of course. And Bregman is definitely guilty as well because all of a sudden this guy Bregman had an amazing year.
Yeah,
I mean, I know people that I talk fantasy baseball with that are saying I'm not even going to decide to draft this guy because you do not know what to expect.
Yeah. But so more details on that whole NFL thing. Now they're talking about plus. Including with the the playoff being expanded to 7 teams in each conference, the regular season would be increased to 17 games per team, and the preseason shortened to 3 games per team.
I like it. I think the NFL season is a big hit, and I think the NFL wants to maximize its profits. And if you have any chance of
it's just one more game,
but at the same time, it's a lot more money.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying.
You talk about the fourth preseason game attendance compared to the first regular season game is a big difference. In every regard, you could charge more money, and you know it.
Absolutely.
And the NFL needs more money if you have any chance of especially with these quarterbacks and what they're expecting, no offense to yours, and Dak Prescott. I mean, you're destroying these teams with the salary cap, but the NFL teams only have these guys obviously make a lot of money, but there's a lot of people that work for these organizations. It's not just the players.
So we had NBA All-Star Weekend this past weekend, and you wanted to sound off on the dunk contest. And I'm going to let you do it.
No, of course, and I understand how you're approaching. I'm not going to sound like the broken records that I'm hearing within Twitter and all these ESPN.
It was a good dunk contest. I would say
it was, and they were going back and forth.
But I'll let you finish.
But the point is that we are beyond this. I think this has been the same for about 10 years. We got people dunking over people as like a highlight, and the dunk contest was something special when guys brought out new dunks and just the things they were able to do were unlike anything we had ever seen. And I have to say that for about the past 10 years, watching somebody, a point guard, a very short point guard dunking over, when Robinson dunked over Dwight Howard, these were highlights. And again, I didn't watch it that year. And we're talking like that was a long time ago. And I haven't watched since.
That was like
I did not watch the dunk contest. There's no interest for me. The dunks are the same. There's no one coming out with anything new. And I promise you, if they do come out with something new, I'll see it on ESPN. But I haven't in 10 years.
Yeah, I didn't watch the dunk contest either. I watched highlights of it. It was very good. It brought a lot of drama, as you say.
Absolutely.
Judging
is very, very difficult.
I will say I did watch every part from start to finish of the NBA All-Star Game. And mind you, I don't usually watch it. The last couple of years I have, just because most of the time I was working at Sirius, so I had to watch the game because I had to work the game. I had to do the highlights for it. So I had to watch the game. This time I wanted to watch it because, first of all, I wanted to see this new format. I wanted to see the whole tribute to Kobe, what everybody was doing, wearing the 2 and the 24s and just everything like that. But what I saw on the court that night was just something else that was just awesome to watch. It was, you're watching the best of the best in the NBA go at it, especially for that fourth quarter. Now, if you don't know what the format was, if you haven't heard about it, the first 3 quarters, you start at 0. Whoever wins the quarter, $100,000 goes to that charity of whichever team had it. So LeBron had his charity, Giannis had his charity. So the first quarter went to LeBron's charity, $100,000 there. The second quarter, Giannis's team won. That $100,000 went to Giannis's team. The third quarter, they tied. So now that $100,000 gets thrown into the pot for the fourth quarter. So the fourth quarter was up for $2,000 now, $200,000. But when it comes down to the fourth quarter now, you add up the score, and whatever the winning team or the most points a team had, you add 24 to that, and that was the target score. So Giannis's team had the advantage. What we saw for that fourth quarter was unbelievable. I will say it was unbelievable. They played hard. I mean, you had the kids for each charity sitting behind, the hoops on each end, cheering on. They had, the best seats in the house. And it was just overall, it was unbelievable. And, like a lot of the players said, they thought it was awesome. They thought that Kobe's presence was with them at that point.
Of course.
Just overall, I thought it was great.
Honestly, the one thing I loved more about it than anything was it was very simple, but I loved the fact of naming the All-Star MVP after Kobe Bryant. I think that was an amazing decision by the National Basketball Association.
I will
There's
say
really no other way to put it.
I'm going to say this right now. Adam Silver, I think, is the best commissioner in sports.
He's done a great job, yeah, absolutely. And that's why the NBA is so popular. I mean, you look at ESPN and you look at LeBron James and you look at all these things. They're covering it like crazy.
Yeah.
The NFL gets covered a lot, obviously, but it's the only sport playing at the time. But when it comes down to it, the NBA has competition with the National Hockey League and even college basketball and portions of baseball. Of course. And there's no doubt about it. They reign supreme.
So now, before we get out of here, how do we fix the Pro Bowl? How do we fix the NHL? I think we fixed the NHL. I think the NHL All-Star Game is actually pretty good with what they do, the tournament style.
I mean, listen, there's no one that's a bigger fan than me, but you're asking the wrong person in this ordeal. Like, I don't watch these All-Star games. I'm a fan of a team, and I'm a fan of a team, and it's hard to try to be, full of sports to this degree, and try to watch these All-Star games. But at the same time, I'm a fan of a team, and I'm rooting for the team. And if they're on a break, I'm just making sure that none of the players on my team get hurt, because it has happened to me with John Tavares.
Yeah. So basically, when it comes to the All-Star Game, and I've said this every single time we've talked about it, it's so different nowadays that it's not as appealing to people, because we have the NBA package, we have the NHL package, we have the NFL package, we have the MLB package. You can literally watch whatever team you want to see, whatever player you want to see. If that night you want to watch, you know what, LeBron's playing Kawhi Leonard, but I live in the New York area. Those are 2 LA teams. I don't have that channel. You get the NBA package, you have that channel now, and now you can watch it from either broadcast, whichever you want to watch, and you can watch those players. You can watch those players on an every night basis. Back in the day when the All-Star Game was huge, a lot of people were not allowed to see, or were not able to see, these top players. If you were in the New York area, it was hard to see.
Well, that's why you'll see every single time that the viewership was definitely higher back in the day. Yeah. And it's on that basis alone. But now we live in a new world. I mean, whether we like to think it or not, we live in a new world where we have access to highlights left and right. People
now it's
just in
boring.
General, of course.
The All-Star Game is boring now.
Because people see these people play every night, all right? They know. We watch ESPN, always has special games on at the same time. And I know what you're saying with the NBA package. But even after a game is over, like I talk about with these fights.
Oh, yeah. Well, you have it on Twitter.
Of course. And people paying $50 for these fights. But then all of a sudden, 30 seconds after the fight is over, I watched the same fight you just did for $50. It just doesn't make sense to me. So, there are times where, you need to have some understanding as to the situation.
But, so to me, now it's just, because we've seen these players play on a regular basis, you want to see a good game.
Of course.
So when it comes down to, I literally tuned into the Pro Bowl, when they played this past season. I tuned into the Pro Bowl for no exaggeration, probably about 5 minutes, because that is one game I will not absolutely watch. I tuned in by accident. You know what?
15 years.
You know,
15 years we're talking about
the only
something.
reason why I tuned into the Pro Bowl
Why?
was because I was trying to find out if Kobe actually died. That is the exact reason why I tuned into the Pro Bowl. It's sad to say.
But
when I did tune in, I watched one play. And the ball was handed off. Defensive end broke his block and just hugged Ezekiel Elliott. And that was a tackle.
Yeah, because nobody's trying to get hurt with this stuff. And just
So,
like nobody's
like,
trying to get hurt at
But
these
what can we do to the NFL
Just give
Pro
them a
Bowl?
break and then and minimize your profits. I mean, the NBA, the National Football League, you make enough money. And I know you know what, there are some
NBA
people that
made
are,
their change. I think NBA, this is good for forever. This format, because you're gonna get a good product on the court to watch. So I think that's gonna be they're set.
Yeah,
NHL I think is set.
I'm honestly just done talking about these All-Star games because it's just the truth. I mean, I'm an average fan, and I know there are some fans out there that enjoy watching it and will go to these events. I've never even thought about going to an All-Star event, no matter what sport it was. I went to the
Fan Fest for baseball one year.
I have zero interest in the game, in any of the games. Like, of all four major sports, I don't care. It's just not relevant to me. The game means nothing. And the only thing I'm praying to God is that I look at ESPN later on that night and make sure that none of the players that are on my team got hurt, because the one team I care about is my team. Like, I don't care about the Eastern Conference, All-Star. I don't care about that. It's irrelevant to me.
With baseball, I don't think you could change it any way to make it more interesting, because you can't not play hard, I guess you could say, in baseball. Like, there's nothing...
Mm-hmm.
Like, unless you're going to lob a pitch over. Like, that's really the only way that you can, take your time or just kind of ease up. Like, football, it's a contact sport, so you can ease up on a tackle, or you can, just hug the guy and, consider a tackle. Basketball, just don't play defense, and that's, usually what you see in an NBA All-Star game. Same thing with hockey. Hockey, it's like, all right, don't play defense. You can't check anyway, so why, So I think what NHL did to their playoff system works. NBA definitely works with their playoffs. All-Star system.
Yeah, it's definitely not playoffs. It's All-Star, and it's irrelevant.
Yeah. And NFL, I don't think there's really anything that they can do to make it more interesting. And
I don't have those ideas. There are plenty of people out there that get paid to have those ideas, and there's just nothing that comes to mind, because as a fan, there's really nothing you can do to these games that are going to make them more interesting for me. Even you talking about the NBA format, I mean, and how they did it, you lost me. You kind of lost.
Cool,
I know, but you lost me on it. And I love the whole idea of, charities, and that's amazing.
Honoring Kobe.
Of course, honoring Kobe, but when it comes to doing these certain things and who has the advantage, I'm just beyond it. And honestly, I'm ready to watch the Boston Celtics when they play their next game off the All-Star break, and pray to God that Jason Tatum didn't get hurt during this what I'd like to call nonsense.
Well, our teams are going at it on Sunday.
Well, good luck. You're gonna need it. My team's ready to go, baby. They're always ready. The Celtics. That's always a fun game. That's the game I'm going to tune into. I'm not going to tune into this All-Star stuff.
So this was a good one. We had a lot to talk about.
Absolutely.
And I'm interested to see, because we're definitely going to probably end up talking about this whole NFL thing next week. And we're going to get into some other things, because Drew Brees is back now. What does that mean for, Teddy Bridgewater? What does that mean for Taysom Hill? Mm-hmm. Where's Tom Brady going to go? Ben Affleck doesn't even know. Phillip Rivers, where is he going to go? Teams with the most cap space. It's just going to be interesting, because, next month or 2 months is the draft. So, it's coming quick.
Yep. That's what happens.
And that will do it. Anything to add?
I'm sorry. I'm going to apologize about the All-Star talk, but it's just my honest opinion of the matter. It's just they're not irrelevant. They're not relevant games.
Leave us a voicemail. Follow us on Twitter. Follow us on Facebook. Not Facebook. Whoa. Follow us on Twitter. Follow us on Instagram.
Since 2005.
Yeah, right. Go to our website, rutsports.com, that you'll get all the information. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Subscribe to us on iTunes, everything. But that will do it. I'm Jerry.
I'm Kevin.
Be breezy.
be breezy.
And it is all over! You've been listening to Running Up the Score. We run up the score on sports radio. For more Running Up the Score, go follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at RUTS Sports.